Have you ever wondered why a man who once spoke with certainty slowly retreats into silence, as if a door inside him quietly closed? In the language of depth psychology, silence is rarely absence. It is a defense, a withdrawal of psychic energy when the ego feels exposed, challenged, or diminished. A man does not go silent because he feels nothing. He goes silent because something inside him is overwhelmed by what he feels but cannot integrate. In the archetypal sense, the masculine psyche seeks coherence, respect, and inner order. When these are threatened, the shadow awakens. Rather than confront it consciously, many men retreat into quietude, believing distance will restore control. But silence is not strength when it is born from avoidance. Seneca warned that what is not examined becomes a hidden tyrant, ruling from the dark. Silence, in this case, becomes the tyrant's mask. There are patterns, habits that slowly erode the masculine center until withdrawal feels safer than presence. These habits do not appear dramatic at first. They masquerade as independence, self-respect, or emotional restraint. Yet beneath them lies a fragile ego negotiating its worth through power, distance, or control. When that ego feels destabilized, speech collapses into stillness. You may feel the shift before it is spoken. The pauses grow longer, the warmth cools, words become functional, then sparse, then absent. This is not mystery, it is psyche in retreat. The anima, his inner feminine mirror, has been stirred, and instead of integrating her message, he turns away. This silence is not your punishment, nor your failure. It is a signal. A man confronting the limits of his emotional architecture often chooses disappearance over transformation, and every habit that leads him there follows the same unconscious logic: preserve the ego at the cost of connection. Silence deepens when a man is repeatedly confronted with emotional reality he has not yet earned the capacity to hold. One of the most corrosive habits is dismissing emotional reality, minimizing feelings, reframing vulnerability as drama, or intellectualizing pain to avoid feeling it. In Jungian terms, this is repression disguised as rationality. The psyche keeps score. What is dismissed does not vanish. It sinks into the shadow, where it gains weight and pressure. A man conditioned to equate strength with emotional control often believes silence is maturity. Yet Marcus Aurelius reminded that true strength is the ability to meet reality without distortion. When emotions are invalidated, especially by himself, language becomes dangerous. Speaking risks exposure. Silence then becomes armor. Not because he lacks words, but because words would dismantle the persona he relies on to feel intact. Another habit quietly feeding this withdrawal is the need to dominate emotional direction. When connection begins to require mutuality rather than control, the ego panics. Instead of renegotiating identity, the psyche retreats. Distance restores the illusion of power. A man may not consciously intend this. The unconscious moves faster than awareness. Silence becomes a way to reassert hierarchy without confrontation. You may notice how he becomes unreachable exactly when clarity is most needed. Questions feel intrusive. Requests for honesty are experienced as threats. The masculine ideal he was taught, be unshakable, be unmoved, collides with the reality of relational intimacy. Unable to reconcile the two, he chooses absence. This is not emotional mystery, it is emotional economy. He conserves psychic energy by withdrawing from what destabilizes him. Epictetus taught that disturbance comes not from events, but from judgments about them. When intimacy is judged as loss of self, silence feels like salvation. But silence does not resolve conflict, it suspends it. And suspended tension only hardens. What remains unspoken calcifies into distance, resentment, and eventually detachment. The man grows quieter not because he is at peace, but because he is increasingly estranged from his own inner dialogue. As the withdrawal persists, another habit reveals itself: The refusal to self-reflect. A man who avoids looking inward will always struggle to remain present outwardly. Jung observed that what is not made conscious appears as fate. Silence becomes the stage upon which unresolved patterns repeat themselves. Rather than ask, "What is being asked of me here?" the psyche defaults to evasion. This habit often wears the face of pride. Admitting confusion, fear, or inadequacy threatens the constructed self-image. The ego clings to certainty, even when that certainty is isolation. In such moments, speech feels like surrender, silence feels like control. Yet this control is hollow, sustained only by avoidance. Another subtle but devastating pattern is outsourcing self-worth. When a man relies on external validation to stabilize his identity, intimacy becomes dangerous. A strong, perceptive woman does not merely see him, she reflects him. And reflection exposes fractures. Instead of integrating that mirror, he turns away from it. Silence becomes a way to mute the feedback loop that threatens his fragile sense of value. You may sense that his quietness increases precisely when you stand firmly in your truth. Your clarity does not intimidate him consciously, it destabilizes him unconsciously. The animus stirs again, calling him toward growth, emotional responsibility, and individuation. But individuation demands the death of old identities. Many choose disappearance over rebirth. Stoic philosophy teaches that freedom lies in mastering one's inner world, not escaping it. Yet the habit of emotional evasion teaches the opposite lesson. When discomfort arises, withdraw. When challenged, disappear. Over time, silence becomes reflexive rather than intentional. He no longer knows how to stay. This is where many women misinterpret the quiet. They search for hidden messages, assuming silence contains secret meaning. Often, it contains only fear left unexamined. His stillness is not a puzzle to solve, but a boundary revealing where his development currently ends. What he avoids speaking aloud is what he cannot yet face within, and until that inner confrontation occurs, silence will remain his chosen refuge, calm on the surface, fragmented beneath. Eventually, silence evolved from reaction into strategy. Another deadly habit takes root, using withdrawal as leverage. When communication becomes conditional, absence turns into a bargaining tool. This is not always conscious manipulation. More often, it is a learned survival response. If speaking risks losing ground, silence preserves it. The psyche chooses what feels safer, not what is healthier. In Jungian terms, this is the shadow negotiating power. Instead of engaging conflict openly, the man allows quiet to do the work for him. Tension increases, uncertainty grows, control is maintained without accountability. Yet every time silence is used this way, the capacity for authentic connection weakens. What begins as self-protection becomes self-sabotage. There is also the habit of emotional postponement, the belief that clarity can wait. He convinces himself that time will resolve what courage has not addressed. Marcus Aurelius warned against delaying the work of the soul, reminding that avoidance only compounds disorder. Silence stretches days into distance, distance into detachment. By the time words return, meaning has already drained from them. You may notice how his quietness feels heavier now, less confused and more resigned. This is the sound of disengagement rehearsed too many times. The nervous system adapts to absence. The psyche learns that withdrawal brings relief. Presence begins to feel like effort. Another pattern quietly reinforcing the silence is the fear of being seen as inadequate. Speaking requires precision, honesty, and emotional risk. Silence allows him to remain undefined. As long as he does not speak, he is not measured. But this undefined state is not freedom, it is suspension. The masculine archetype longs to be competent, grounded, and respected. When a man feels he cannot meet these internal standards, he retreats rather than revise them. Silence becomes a holding pattern, a place where nothing is demanded and nothing is resolved. What fades here is not communication alone, but polarity, aliveness, and mutual recognition. The relationship becomes a space he enters less and less, until quiet replaces intimacy entirely. As silence settles in, another habit completes the pattern: emotional rigidity. This is the refusal to adapt, to soften, to evolve one's inner structure and responds to lived experience. A rigid psyche treats change as threat. When emotional demands increase, flexibility would require growth. Silence requires nothing. It becomes the easier choice. Jung described neurosis as the soul's suffering that has not found its meaning. A man who refuses to search for meaning in discomfort will instead mute the discomfort altogether. He stops articulating nuance. Conversations flatten. Complexity feels exhausting. The inner world becomes guarded, sparse, closed. Silence is no longer reactive, it is habitual. Closely tied to this is the habit of emotional compartmentalization. He separates strength from tenderness, logic from feeling, desire from responsibility. This fragmentation creates inner tension. When asked to integrate, to show up fully, he withdraws. Silence allows him to maintain internal walls without having to explain them. You may experience this as a sudden emotional coldness that contrasts sharply with earlier intensity. This is not contradiction, it is collapse. The earlier engagement required energy he no longer knows how to sustain. Rather than renegotiate the terms of connection, he retreats into minimal expression. Stoic wisdom does not advocate emotional absence, it advocates emotional mastery. Yet mastery requires practice, not avoidance. When the practice is skipped, silence masquerades as composure, but beneath it lies stagnation. The final habit is perhaps the most tragic, confusing peace with numbness. A man convinces himself that quiet means balance, that distance means clarity. But peace that requires disconnection is not peace, it is exile from the self. The soul grows quieter when it feels unheard even by its own consciousness. At this stage, silence is no longer a message, it is an endpoint, and only a profound inner reckoning can reverse it. When the silence reaches its peak, something clarifying happens in the psyche of the woman who has been witnessing it. What once felt like a riddle reveals itself as a pattern. The nervous system stops bracing for answers that never arrive. Attention turns inward. This is the moment where power quietly returns. In Jungian terms, this is where projection dissolves. The anima is withdrawn from the man who could not meet her and reclaimed by the woman who no longer needs his reflection to know her worth. What he could not integrate becomes irrelevant to her individuation. Silence loses its authority when it is no longer interpreted as meaning. A man who goes silent is not always choosing absence over you. More often, he is choosing absence over himself. And that choice has consequences he alone must carry. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "No one is harmed by another's actions more than the one who commits them." Withdrawal may protect him from discomfort, but it also seals him off from growth. You are not required to wait in the quiet, to translate pauses, or to earn words through patience. Emotional adulthood does not demand endurance of absence, it demands clarity of self. When external validation is released, silence becomes neutral. It neither wounds nor defines. This is where emotional freedom begins. Detachment not as bitterness, but as self-respect. The inner world stabilizes. The compulsion to chase resolution fades. What remains is calm discernment and a grounded sense of identity that does not negotiate for presence. The final truth is simple and sobering. Silence only has power where self-abandonment still exists. Silence loses its power the moment self-respect takes its place. If this message awakened clarity, let it anchor by pressing like. If it spoke to your experience, leave a comment and give it a voice. And if you are choosing growth over confusion, subscribe and walk this path consciously.